All right, we're back again with another episode of Roofer Reflections. I'm really excited to have Frank here. Frank, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate you having me on, Tats.
Awesome. So you've been part of HailTrace for 11 years. What were you doing before you got into working at this company?
Well, so it's actually kind of a funny story. Um, I was in college until 2014. I graduated with my meteorology degree in December of 2014, and I was actively looking for jobs in the weather field, and I couldn't find anything. Even the news station I interned at in Connecticut, I just couldn't find anything. Um, and so I had all my stuff packed up. I was 2 weeks away from moving to New York City with no job lined up. I was going to take a couch spot in a buddy's apartment there. Um, and my friend from college, who I lived with for a little while, John Choquette, he is our lead meteorologist here at HailTrace. He actually called me. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning one night. And he was basically like, hey, one of the meteorologists we have on staff, we had to let him go because he basically quit his job to go storm chasing. And so, they let him go. And he's like, you still looking for a weather job? And I was like, absolutely. He's like, cool. I'm going to have Derek call you in the morning. Derek Klein, the owner of HailTrace, and, talk to you over the phone. Derek calls me at like 9 o'clock in the morning the next morning and asks me a couple questions. And he's just like, John vouches for you. You seem like a really cool guy. You line up with the values that we have here at the company. Can you be here in 6 days? Move out to Oklahoma from Connecticut in 6 days? And I was like, I'm already packed. So yeah, sure. I took the job offer, drove out here to Oklahoma, walk into the office the first day, and I'm like, cool. So what do we do? I had no idea. I was just like, a weather job? Awesome. Let's do it. So
Yeah.
I didn't even know any technology like what we do existed. When I thought storms and severe weather, the thought of roofers, insurance companies, that kind of stuff never even crossed my mind. So it's been quite a journey over the last 11 years being with HailTrace. So it's just kind of funny how that all happened.
When you were talking about a few questions come to mind. I guess the weather business moves fast because, there's an opening, your buddy calls you at 3 in the morning, right? Right. For a job. And then 6 days later, you're in a new one. It must have been a whirlwind.
Yeah. And like you said, weather moves fast. We need to stay on top of that stuff. And so like in that exact scenario, when the other guy left, it was in the middle of an outbreak in April. So, I'm not sure if anybody out there doesn't know what we do. We actually have meteorologists on staff that track storms live. We do hand-drawn maps. So at that point, losing somebody, John was having to cover an entire outbreak going on his own, trying to map all those hailstorms. And so they needed somebody immediately. Is how that works.
So walk me through, for people that don't know, what does it mean to map out? Are they subscribe to a bunch of services and then you're trying to like overlay things and try to correlate them? Or how is it done?
Basically, we have access to radar data. We pull up different parameters of radar data, and we track those storms, analyze, we do hail, wind, and tornadoes now. So we're analyzing a bunch of different things in those storms. And then we have, our mapping tool on the back end of our website that we hand draw those maps in there. And then those transfer over to the HailTrace platform, where anybody who needs to have access to know exactly where that stuff happens, the neighborhoods it impacts down to the street level, you have access to go in there, see all those storms. Depending on what your use case is would vary. Obviously roofing companies need to know where that stuff happens so they can go into those neighborhoods and help people do inspections and, get them some new roof repairs or full replacements. We have public adjusters, PDR, paintless dent repair companies, insurance adjusters that use us. So basically, yeah, we do those hand-drawn maps, and our entire goal is we want to give you the best data possible, objective truth. or not on either side of, we don't care what actually the claim comes down to. We just want to provide accurate data so the right decisions can be made, is what that comes down to.
Yeah. Is the process still the same now, or has it evolved over the years in terms of how you can pull those two together?
Yes. So we did. There has been some evolvement. Like back in the day, and when myself and John were the ones doing it, we actually had to like draw everything into Google Maps and then export those KML files and then import them back over to our website to get those swaths onto the website. It was a very involved process to do any number of storms. But now, we map that straight into our backend stuff, and that comes over the website. So the process is streamlined now. Also, we have a larger team now. We have 17 total meteorologists on staff. I am no longer on the mapping team. I switched over to the sales department. But yeah, we have a larger mapping team now. So now there's more shift work and stuff like that. We can get better coverage, make sure we're staying on top of everything instead of two people trying to do everything all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, data is important. So how was your transition over to sales?
Pretty seamless. I mean, I love weather, but it was, and people don't really think about this when they think about HailTrace, but our meteorology team is the foundation of what we do here, and they put a lot of work into what we provide as a service. At the time, it wasn't a good work-life balance for me, so I talked it over with Derek, and he said, I think, you're really good at talking to people. You already come to trade shows anyway and are making sales for us as a meteorologist. I think it's a seamless transition for you to go over to sales and, be front facing and talking to people and seeing how you can help people get the data they need.
So from someone that doesn't understand weather, what are some of the things that people have a misconception about weather in general and weather predicting?
So one of the things that people have a misconception about, and this kind of pertains to the industry as a whole, kind of like what we provide, is how much more accurate a hand-drawn map can be compared to algorithmic data. One of the things, because there's a lot that goes into a hail algorithm, but the basis of it is it's picking up those hailstones in what's known as the hail growth zone of the thunderstorm, which can be anywhere from 15, 20, 25,000 feet up in the air, where the conditions are most suitable for hail growth to happen based on the hail ball being elevated in that storm by the updraft and, going down, refreezing, like that process of how hail forms. And so those algorithms pick up those hailstones way up there, but they're things that they don't account for. So between that up here and the ground level, there's going to be a lot of hail melting that goes on. So that stone is actually going to be smaller by the time it gets to the ground. There's a tilt to the storm, so that storm goes up and then it actually tilts. A lot of that hail development's happening over here, and that's going to fall through that thunderstorm and then out underneath the updraft of that storm. So algorithms have issues in, conveying the correct maximum hail size at ground level, and then also location accuracy. They can be off by a mile or two sometimes. And that's not to say that they're not valuable. Sometimes algorithms nail it. But we have both data sets in our system, and not only just from looking at it from that perspective, but also being on the mapping team for 8 years, it's a night and day difference being able to analyze that stuff with your eyes and draw it by hand versus an algorithm trying to compute everything.
Okay, very cool. If people are trying to get into this type of line of roofing work or roofing related work, what advice do you have for them?
I would say you need to love the weather. If you're going to work for a weather data company, love the weather. But I think almost more importantly, since your client base matters, we don't just service roofers, but they are a large portion of our client base. One of the things that has helped me the most is actually talking to roofers, learning more about the industry, the struggles that people face, the successes that people have, how they get to that point from here. Knowing that kind of stuff helps you be able to adjust your product or frame your product in a way that is going to be most beneficial to them. Because ultimately, your goal is to provide good data that helps people. Um, and so you kind of need to know a little bit about their circumstances, the pain points that they have, things like that, to be able to do that effectively.